You know, when we text our friends or sign a birthday card, XOXO means hugs and kisses. It's affectionate. It's warm. But have you ever walked through an animal shelter and seen those exact four letters scribbled in red marker on a kennel card?
Oh, absolutely. And in that context, it is definitely not a love letter. It is a code, a warning. It usually means do not touch, will bite, or handle with extreme caution. It tells the staff and the volunteers that the dog inside is dangerous.
Exactly. And that's the paradox we're looking at today. We're diving into the story of a specific dog, let's call him Milo, who came into the shelter system labeled with that heavy XOXO warning. By all accounts, he was unapproachable. He was growling, snapping, and terrified. But as we peel back the layers of this story, quite literally, we find something much more complex than just a bad dog.
That's the perfect way to frame it, peeling back layers. Because in Milo's case, the aggression wasn't a personality trait, it was a symptom. And I think this story really challenges us to look at how we interpret animal behavior, especially in high-stress environments like a shelter.
So, let's set the scene here. This dog comes in as a stray. He's found roaming a busy downtown area, dodging cars, totally neglected. He ends up at the shelter, and immediately, the barriers go up. He's labeled aggressive. The narrator of our story, who specializes in these difficult cases, goes in to do what he calls standing with dogs. Can you explain that concept a bit?
It's a fascinating approach. Usually when we try to help a scared dog, we want to fix it immediately. We want to pet them, leash them, move them. Standing with dogs is about removing the agenda. You enter their space, you respect their boundaries, and you just exist with them. You let them dictate the pace. It's about de-escalating the pressure. But with Milo, even that passive approach was triggering massive panic.
Right. The narrator mentions that even the slightest movement sent Milo into a frenzy. He was huddled in the back, matted fur everywhere. And this wasn't just a bad hair day. We're talking about neglect so severe that the fur had turned into dreadlocks. But then, there was a discovery. A moment where the narrator spotted something that changed the entire equation.
Yes, this is the turning point. While trying to gently interact with Milo, avoiding getting bitten, he notices something stuck in the dog's paw. And then he sees another one in the towel. They were burrs, specifically those nasty, spiky seed pods that latch onto fabric and hair.
Oh, I know the ones. You walk through a field and get one on your sock, and it scratches your ankle all day. It's annoying.
Now imagine that, but multiplied by 100 and pressed directly against your skin, trapped under a hard shell of matted fur. Every time Milo moved, every time he lay down, and certainly every time a human tried to touch him, he was being stabbed by these spikes.
That completely reframes the XOXO label, doesn't it? He wasn't biting because he hated people. He was biting because he anticipated pain.
Precisely. It's a pain response. Think about it. If you had a broken arm and a stranger came rushing at you to grab it, you'd probably scream or shove them away. Milo couldn't scream, so he growled. The aggression was actually self-defense. He had associated human touch with immediate, sharp pain.
That is heartbreaking. And it puts the rescuers in such a bind. You want to help him, you want to get those burrs off, but you can't touch him without hurting him and causing him to attack. It's a catch-22. So, what was the solution? They couldn't just brush him out.
No, a brush would have been torture in that state. They had to go the medical route. They decided on a medically induced groom. Essentially, they had to sedate Milo. It sounds drastic, but it was the only humane option. They needed to put him to sleep so they could shave away the mats and remove the burrs without him feeling the trauma of it.
It's almost like surgery at that point.
It really is. And when they finally got him to the grooming table, and shout out to the groomer, Mel, who sounds like an absolute saint, the extent of the damage was visible. His underbelly was raw and red. These burrs had been grinding into his softest skin for who knows how long.
There was a moment described where the narrator is watching this happen, watching the burrs get pulled out, and you can feel the relief by proxy. But there's also a sense of anger, isn't there? I mean, this didn't happen overnight.
That's the hard truth of rescue. This wasn't an accident. You don't accidentally let your dog get covered in burrs and matted to the point of immobility. This was chronic neglect. And the narrator makes a strong point. Someone owned this dog. Someone watched this happen and did nothing.
It raises a philosophical question about responsibility. We often blame the dog for the behavior, oh, he's biting, he's bad. But the behavior is just a mirror of the treatment he received.
Exactly. And once the physical pain was removed, the question remained. Who is Milo underneath? We stripped away the mats, we took out the burrs, but did we strip away the fear?
That's the big reveal. He wakes up from the sedation. He's got a little bandana on. He looks like a completely different animal, literally. He's a white dog, not the dirty tan color he looked before. But behaviorally,
This is where it gets emotional. They put him in a playgroup with other dogs to test his temperament. Now remember, 24 hours ago, this dog was labeled XOXO, dangerous, do not touch. He enters the yard, he's a bit wobbly, still nervous. But then, the camera catches it. A tail wag.
just a tiny one?
A tiny microscopic tail wag. But in the language of dog behavior, that is shouting from the rooftops. It was the first crack in the armor. It signaled that the monster inside the kennel was actually just a sweet, terrified boy who was finally pain-free.
It's incredible how resilient they are. I mean, after months or years of neglect, to still have that capacity for optimism, to wag a tail at a stranger, it puts our own grudges to shame.
It really does. And there was another surprise during the exam, his age. Initially, looking at his teeth, there was so much tartar buildup that they thought he might be an older dog, maybe 4 or 5. But once they cleaned him up and looked closer, the vet realized he was basically a puppy, maybe a year old.
Wow. So he had the physical wear and tear of an old dog just because of poor diet and neglect.
Right? And that brings up the nutrition aspect too. The narrator mentioned trying to get him on high quality food, specifically mentioning Sundays. It's not just about calories, it's about healing from the inside out. When a dog has been starving or eating garbage, their body is in a deficit. Good food is part of the rehabilitation just as much as the grooming was.
So now we have a clean dog, a fed dog, and a dog that is tentatively wagging his tail, but he's still in the shelter system. The narrator was talking about taking him to the farm. What does that represent for a dog like Milo?
The farm represents time. That's the one resource shelters rarely have. Shelters are loud, high stress, and overcrowded. A dog like Milo, who is recovering from psychological trauma, needs space to decompress. He needs to learn that not every hand is going to hurt him. Whether he goes to the farm or gets adopted immediately, the critical factor now is patience.
It's interesting you mention patience because the narrator admitted to feeling frustrated. He wanted to just fix it instantly. But he had to respect the dog's pace. It's a lesson for anyone looking to adopt, really.
Absolutely. If you adopt a rescue, especially a neglect case, you aren't getting a ready-made pet. You are entering a partnership of rehabilitation. You have to be willing to stand with the dog, as the narrator says. You have to accept the baggage and help them unpack it.
And the payoff?
The payoff is that tail wag. It's seeing the personality emerge. There is nothing more rewarding than watching a dog realize they are safe for the first time in their life.
It really emphasizes the importance of looking past the label. If everyone had just looked at the XOXO card and walked away, Milo would have sat there in pain, getting worse every day. It took someone willing to investigate why he was behaving that way to save him.
That's the takeaway. Behavior is communication. Aggression is communication. If we stop listening at the growl, we miss the story. We miss the burrs. We miss the pain. We have to be curious enough to ask, what is hurting you? Rather than just, why are you being bad?
Well said. It's a story of transformation, but also a call to action for empathy. Before we wrap up, I want to touch on the community aspect. The narrator kept talking to the audience, asking for support, mentioning the members. It feels like rescuing a dog like Milo isn't a solo act.
It never is. The cost of the medical groom, the high-quality food, the transport, the shelter operations, it takes a village, and beyond the money, it takes people sharing the story. That dog needs a home. By sharing the video or talking about it, that XOXO dog finds the one person who says, I can help him.
And hopefully, that person is listening or watching right now. Milo's story went from a tragedy to a hopeful cliffhanger. He's clean, he's safe, but he's not home yet.
Not yet, but he's ready. That's the miracle. He's ready to try.
It makes you wonder how many other XOXO dogs are sitting in kennels right now, just waiting for someone to notice they're in pain, not just angry.
Probably more than we want to admit. But stories like this give us the blueprint on how to help them.
Well, that gives us a lot to think about. From a warning code to a wagging tail, it's been quite a journey in just 15 minutes. For everyone listening, next time you see a difficult animal, maybe take a second look. There might be a burr you can't see.
Or a story you haven't heard yet.
Exactly. Thanks for diving deep with us today. And for Milo, wherever you land, we're rooting for you.
We're standing with you, Milo.
Until next time, keep listening and keep caring.